Really?
Yes. I'm loud and clear. Up the ante slightly. And I'll say hello all over again. Hi, good afternoon. A very, very warm welcome to the Sydney Jewish Museum on this very, very special day where we've got Jackie French with us launching her new book, and we both thought, and Jackie herself thought, that the museum would really be the most appropriate place for her to launch this very special book. And we're so delighted to have you with us, and welcome. Jackie's flown in from Canberra for this very special occasion. Before I introduce Jackie, I'd like to introduce another very, very special person who's with us today. When Jackie wrote this book, she said to me that Olga Horak, who is a survivor of the Holocaust, had been an inspiration for her in wanting to write this book and put another story together. And her and Olga formed a very, very strong bond and friendship, and Olga's agreed to say a few words today. Olga Horak has been part of the museum since its very inception, since it was thought about 27 years ago, and since we opened our doors 25 years ago. It's our 25th birthday in November. Olga has inspired, I won't even say hundreds, I'll say thousands along the way. She's the most eloquent, bright, thoughtful, thought-provoking lady. She always has something of essence to say. She's a survivor who has suffered many tragedies and many losses in her life, but she has stayed forthright and strong and eloquent. And she's going to say a few words for you today. So please give Olga a very, very warm welcome.
Thank you very much for this very special introduction, which I don't really deserve. I want to welcome ladies and gentlemen here to this very special establishment, which I'm very proud of being involved with. I've been a volunteer here for the past 27 years before we opened the doors to this special, beautiful museum. Of course, I'm talking about it because it is one of the best, not one of the biggest museums of this kind. I'm very biased, of course, so please excuse me for mentioning it, but you will probably have the opportunity to visit that place and see. I have been talking about my background, my suffering, the experiences during the Second World War, only 27 years ago when I started, and I haven't stopped since then. Of course, now it is to me a satisfaction, because I believe that it is appreciated to have information from a Holocaust survivor. Unfortunately, we are now a decimated group, and my task, of course, still is to come here and to be active as long as I'm appreciated and I'm needed. It is important that the information about the Holocaust should be from people who are survivors. But as I said, unfortunately, we haven't got many of the survivors who are still active. But we have a wonderful team here who are teaching. Our Professor Konrad Kvitt, who is there, who is a very humble gentleman, who is giving lectures and teaching the new volunteers who are willing to come and hopefully will be as committed as the first volunteers were. It is important to be still active at my age, because, I feel it is satisfying to me to be still active and needed. And that is why I don't stop coming 3 times a week. I have found wonderful friends through coming here. And of course, this is one of the biggest privileges at that stage in my life, to have younger friends, not just old friends. And one of the friends, which is a very precious lady indeed now is Jackie French. She is a wonderful lady, not only a wonderful author who has written many books, but a wonderful friend, and I do cherish and value her friendship very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olga. We cherish you just as much, and we cherish all the Holocaust survivors. And those of you who are in the audience today, welcome to each and every one of you. You are the heart and soul of this museum. You are what we are all about. You are the inspiration and the message and the memory. So we really value you, all of you, every single day. And thank you for your beautiful words. And you will be with us for many years to come, inspiring many more children, I'm sure. And now it's my privilege to introduce Jackie French. Jacqueline, or Jackie as we all know her, is an award-winning Australian author who has written over 140 books and has won more than 60 national and international awards. She's considered one of Australia's most popular and awarded children's authors, writing across a number of children's genres, including picture books, history, fantasy, and history fiction. She was the 2014-15 Australian Children's Laureate and the 2015 Senior Australian of the Year. In 2016, Jackie became a member of the Order of Australia for her contribution to children's literature and her advocacy for youth literacy. She's also an author of numerous books on ecology, gardening, pest control, wombats, other wildlife, as well as fiction for adults, so her interests stretch far and wide. She's a regular contributor to newspapers and magazines around Australia, including the Australian Women's Weekly and the Canberra Times. She has also presented gardening segments on the long-running TV series Burke's Backyard. Jackie began writing Rainstones, her first book for children, when she was 30, living in a shed and in need of money to register her car. Her editor said it was the messiest and worst spelt manuscript ever submitted. But the book ended up being shortlisted for the Children's Book Council of Australia Award for Younger Readers and the New South Wales Premier Award. So even in her early days, Jackie was at her best. A number of her books are also part of the Australian curriculum, including Nanbury, Black Brother White, Flood, A Day to Remember, Baby Wombats Week, Pennies for Hitler, The Girl from Snowy River, and the work she's possibly best known for, Diary of a Wombat, created with artist Bruce Watley. Her most recent works include To Love a Sunburned Country and The Beach They Called Gallipoli. Fire and the Hairy-Nosed Wombats Find a New Home, so she's very interested in wombats. The royalties for all these books have been donated towards wombat preservation and research. Her book, Hitler's Daughter, has been made into a stage play by Monkey Bar, the theatre company just down the road, and toured Australia in 2012 and in the United States in 2013. The play won the Robert Helpman Award in 2007, the Drover Award in 2007, and the Drover Special Panel Award. Monkey Bar also turned her book, Pete the Sheep, created with Bruce Watley, into a musical which toured Australia in 2014. So as you can see, Jackie has prolific interest. She's a prolific author. She's a wonderful lady, and we look very, very forward to welcoming you and hearing from you this afternoon. Welcome.
I'll start reading passages from this book, if that's okay. And the first is the dedication to Olga Horak, who turns evil into good. I cannot quantify how much Olga has meant to my life and to my family. I first heard of her down where we live in the Aragouan Valley, where my son at 14 had come to this museum and he has heard Olga speak. And he came home in a state of shock. He said, "I didn't know, Mum, I didn't know." And I said, of course you knew, of course you knew. We have told you all about it. You have read the Diary of Anne Frank. We have given you books. Here, there's an entire bookshelf. Of course you know. He said, no, Mum, you don't understand. I knew, but I didn't understand. He needed the voice and he needed the person. So he did understand. And that understanding, I think, probably changed his life. Certainly, my meeting with Olga changed my life at several times. The second time I met Olga, when she had actually suffered an extraordinary tragedy, and there were extremely hard things happening in my life at the same time. And Olga told me that it was working here, doing good, giving, that let her keep on going. And I suddenly realized that, of course, she was right. Evil is contagious, but so is doing good. And doing good, in fact, actually keeps you going. But the other thing about the good that Olga has done is we have no way of knowing how far that good is going to stretch. That every person she has spoken to, it's going to change their lives in some way, maybe small or maybe large. And they will speak to people, and they will speak to people, and they will speak to people. And Olga's voice is going to go down for generation after generation after generation. People very rarely come back to people like Olga and say, you changed my life. I'm pretty sure my son has never done that. But nonetheless, it happens. Not just hundreds of people or thousands of people. I think there have already been tens of thousands of people, and who knows how far the good that Olga Horak has done is going to spread. For how many years or how many centuries, even if it is just a crumb in 500 years, on the balance sheets of good or evil, maybe just that one crumb will make the difference. But the third extraordinary time I met Olga, I was preparing to write this book. I asked to speak to Olga and to some others of the Holocaust survivors, to ask how it was that they, the people who probably the most evil had been done in history, and yet had been people living fulfilled lives doing good. How had they managed to forgive? Now, I thought I knew the answer because I'd done a project with the survivors of prisoner of war camps after World War II, and they had said to me, oh, look, if you were optimistic, if you had mates, you were more likely to survive. Your mate would help you when you were sick, give you food, etc., etc. I expected the same answer, and I didn't get it. They said, no, survival was actually a matter of luck, whether you were sent this way or whether you were sent the other way. And they also said that no, after the war, they did not forgive. What they told me, though, was that they had all realized the necessity of not carrying it with them day after day after day, that your life can't be made up of hatred. And as someone whose youth was quite bizarrely horrendous, until that moment I had never been able to let it down. I knew I never could forgive, but hearing them say what you have to do is forgive every day. Yes, I can do that. I can do that. Every day I can make that decision. I will forgive just for today. And my life changed because of what they said. It changed in ways which are too great to even begin to describe. So that is the first page of the book. The second page is the prologue. My name is Johannes. This is the story of how an ogre swallowed me when I was 10 years old. The ogre swallowed Frau Marx too, and Helga. Other stories will tell you how the ogre ate 44 million people, chewed them up, and so they died. But I do not know 44 million people. This is the story of the three of us. This is the story of how we three learnt to live. And so now for the weather forecast. The weather forecast for tomorrow is that it will probably be like today. If you would like a 92% accuracy rate in forecasting the weather, that is all you need to say. Tomorrow is probably going to be like today. The Weather Bureau only gets about 72% accuracy. So you'll be doing very well if you say that is the weather forecast. Tomorrow will probably be like today, but one day it won't be. And that is really what this book is about. The Holocaust was a Jewish tragedy, but it was not a Jewish crime. This is a book about the crime. It is not a book about Nazis. It is not a book about officials who look the other way. In fact, it is a book about good people, extremely good people. The parents of Johannes in this book are extremely good people. They are doctors, they are not political, they certainly do not put their hands to anything that is wrong or evil. They are good people who do their best, and they realize that when Poland has been taken over by the Germans, they will still keep doing their work in the hospital. It is good work. The only thing they do not do is say, this is wrong. The only thing they do not do is actually look to see what is happening. They make the decision that what they are doing is more important than being political. They make the deliberate decision to look away. And for many people, most people, it is a deliberate decision to look away. And to some extent, that is probably a necessary thing for humanity. If we take on everything which is wrong all the time, it is more than we can bear. It will be counterproductive. But there are times when evil is on your doorstep. And I believe very strongly that you have no option, but when it is presented to you, when it is on your doorstep, that you must stand up and say, this is wrong. And this leads me to the other origin of this book, which again was here and possibly even in this room, where we were commemorating Anne Frank. And one of the speakers, a prominent Australian, said that what she had learned in life was never to take on a battle she could not win. I was speechless then, because what she was really saying was she would not have sheltered the Frank family, because back then, of course, it was impossible that they were going to survive the war. The people who sheltered them knew that all they were doing was giving them a few years, but it was inevitable at some stage they would be found. The people who fought Hitler, whether they were in France, whether they were in England, etc., at the beginning of the war, even at Dunkirk, it was inevitable that Hitler was going to win. This was not a war that any rational person thought they were going to win. Germany had chosen guns over butter. No, it was not a winnable cause until enough people stood, volunteered, took out little ships, women who dropped by parachute into France or Belgium or Germany. It was not a winnable battle until enough people stood up and made it a winnable battle. That is how battles are won. Because when one person stands up and says, this is evil, this must not happen, this is wrong, then someone will stand with them, and another will stand with them, and another will stand with them, until eventually you get to a point, possibly, maybe, hopefully, where evil can be defeated. And so Johannes's family in this book are guilty of nothing except looking away. But of course, by that time in the war, 1944, it was too late, even for good people. It is not very widely known that many of the concentration camps were not, in fact, built primarily for the Holocaust, that they were first built for those who opposed the regime, and particularly for writers and for academics and for social commentators. And that started quite early in the 1930s. Because once you get rid of the voices of opposition, you can do anything. Get rid of those voices first, silence those voices, and yes, you can have the Holocaust. Once you have done that, once people have got used to looking away, once looking away has become something that you do day after day after day, so you do not even think that you are looking away, you just do it automatically. Once you have got to that point, you can not only take people who they say must be eradicated for the good of the Germanic Teutonic race, which, by the way, does not exist. But you can take people with no other excuse than they are going to be useful and we want their property. And that is what was happening at the end of 1942. This is what happens to Georg's parents. They are both doctors, they own a hospital, the hospital is wanted, doctors are wanted, and so for no other reason than they are useful. Their property is taken, their persons are taken, and they end up in a concentration camp. Because by then, there is no one, there is absolutely no one to say, do not do this. But this isn't a book about horror, even though I have to say the first fifth of it was deeply, extraordinarily hard to write. And also this is probably too where I need to give an apology to Olga, to all of the people who were there. I tried to reconstruct those days as much as I could, but I know there will be errors. I deliberately put it into the last months because by that stage the routines had broken down. Many things were happening which were not, I was going to say normal, but even using that word about what was happening is hard to say. But I deliberately chose that time because so many routines, so many regulations actually had broken down. And also, of course, so that the main characters could survive. This is primarily a book about how they learnt to live. It is primarily a book about the lesson that Olga taught me and the other Holocaust survivors here. It is a book about what happens when you do go through the unthinkable, the things that are so bad we would rather turn our faces away. When there is so much guilt in the world that it is so much easier to turn our faces away. When things are so horrible that, of course, we turn our faces away. This is a book about not just survival, but finding joy, finding fulfillment, and doing good. Because no matter what horror happens, there is beauty. No matter what horror has happened, there can be good, there can be laughter, there can be joy, there can be fulfillment, and there can be love. And that is what Olga taught me. So this is the last page of the book. I am Johannes. I am a man of love, not hate. I love my wife, my children, my friends, my patients. I feel the love spread from my hands across the world to join the hands of others. I tell the story of the ogre too, the one called Mr. Hitler. There in the park with my family and my friends, the ogre is dead at last. For me, for Frau Marx, and for Helga. But others have had to carry him in their hearts all their lives. When an ogre swallows you, it is not easy to be free. The world has many ogres. Some, like Mr. Hitler, do not even know that they are ogres, but dream they are the hero of the story. But I have learnt this in the years since I was 10 years old. When you see injustice, stand beside each other and seize your spears. My spears are made of words. Yours may be different. But do not hesitate or look away. If too many look away, the ogres win. To be most deeply human, we must risk our lives for others. Only when we stand together can we be truly free. It is not easy fighting ogres. No one who fights an ogre comes away unscarred, even if you cannot see the wounds. And so you owe the ogre hunters this. When the ogre has been vanquished, sit down upon the quiet earth and try to understand the ogre's anguish and his twisted fear. Only by understanding can we stop them rising in our midst. When you understand, forgive, and then stand up and live. Live well. And that is what Olga taught me. It is so easy to think of the Holocaust as such a long way away. But with people like Olga, we know it isn't. With people like Olga, when we turn on the news, when we read it on our tablets or iPhones, when we read the news, we can read it in the context of Olga's words and Olga's history, and we can see things that are evil. We can read it and see it with eyes that are now open, with eyes and with hearts that know if we do not stand up and say this is wrong, then not only are we guilty, but like Johannes's parents, the time may come where we too may be taken by the ogre. Because if there is no one to say this is wrong, the ogres become more and more powerful until they need no reason whatsoever to do evil except to say, this is what I want to do. But for Olga, yes, you may fight ogres. You may face ogres. You may be chewed up by the ogre and then escape. But because of Olga, I know that even if you do choose to fight ogres, even if you too are taken by the ogre, because of Olga, I know that you can love and you can live, you can do extraordinary good which will last for generations, and that you can have joy and love and you can live well. I do not know of a greater gift that can be given to anyone, any greater than the lessons given to me by Olga Horak.
Oh my goodness, how does one even follow upon those pearls? I remember Jackie talking at the Anne Frank commemoration that we had, and she was telling us about writing this book, and she read us a couple of pages of the chapters. And I can't even wish you good luck with this book, because this book deserves accolades, as do you. And many, many people over many, many years have given thanks to the survivors, have spoken to the survivors, have acknowledged them. But your words today got to the essence and the heart of who they are, what they've delivered. And listening to you was like watching a movie that is so excellent. I kept thinking, please don't stop. Please don't stop. I want to hear more. His phone's talking to them. We've got a phone. Siri's interrupting me.
We're looking for a lost bag. That's why we're ringing the phone.
It's just over here.
Oh, it's that.
I think from the silence in the room today, every single person was hanging on every word that you said. You speak so eloquently, you write so magnificently, and you yourself have managed to impart lessons through your words, your stories, your books to younger readers that others may never have reached. I thank you as always. I don't even know how to thank you for your words today, for your presentation, for your books. I wish you ongoing peace and health and success, and many, many, many more appearances at our museum, because people like you are honestly the essence of what the museum is all about. Please give Jackie a standing ovation, because that's what I think she deserves today. Jackie's previous books and her latest book are on sale, as is the book that Olga has written. Olga wrote her story, which is entitled Auschwitz to Australia, which is also fascinating. So if you'd like to buy any of the books, they are on sale just outside the door, and I'm sure Jackie would be happy to autograph a few books. Thank you all so much for being here today. Please keep track on our website, because we have so many fascinating speakers, talks, movies. We've just opened the exhibition, which is relating to the Greeks of the Jews of Greece. It's a fascinating history. It's on the first floor if you've got time today to have a look. It traces the history of the Jews of Greece through the ages. It's beautifully put together with the most gorgeous photographs taken by Emmanuel Santos, who we've exhibited here in the past. So have a look at that. We've also got a brand new Holocaust exhibition for those of you who haven't visited the museum over the last little while. We opened it in March, and we've had many, many accolades. Thank you again for being here, and thank you again to Olga and to Jackie, and wishing you every success with your book. Thank you.